Today we're going to talk about Deonte Brown and what his suspension means for Oklahoma, Alabama, and the Orange Bowl.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today we are going to talk about Deonte Brown and what his suspension for the Orange Bowl means for Oklahoma. So Deonte Brown was the starting left guard for Alabama. Now, depending on who you talk to, he was critical or not critical at all to Alabama's success on the offensive line. But I come at it a different way. But first, let's get some background here. Deonte Brown took over the starting job at left guard in October, and he started 5 out of the last 6 games since. And when he was dealing with turf toe, the guy that he replaced, Lester Cotton, came in, played well. So Deonte Brown was the starter for good reason. I mean, he beat the dude out for the job. But while he was dealing with turf toe, they had a capable guy at left guard in Lester Cotton. Now, Nick Saban likes to chastise media for saying every time somebody gets injured, we think that they just poop out another player. Well, in this case, it seems that's exactly what happened because Lester Cotton was the number 9 overall guard for the 2016 class. He's a 4-star recruit. He's plenty capable of doing the job. But I think this is interesting in that it's not just Deonte Brown. It's also backup lineman Elliott Baker and tight end Kedrick James. Now, all 3 of these guys were hit with the team violations thing that, is ambiguous and we don't know what exactly it means. All we know is that it was so bad that none of these guys even traveled with the team to Miami for the game. Like, that's how bad they're in the doghouse. And Saban had nothing to say about whether or not Deonte Brown would make it back if they made it to the national title game. But what does this mean for game planning for Oklahoma? I look at it this way. One of the reasons that Oklahoma was so good in the run game, averaging 6.7 yards per rush, was because the offensive line stayed intact. And where I look at Alabama, I look at them kind of the way that you might have looked at Creed Humphrey and Jonathan Alvarez to start the season, which is you had 1 and 1A. Both of those guys were capable at starting at center. You were just talking about experience versus upside, and Creed Humphrey ended up winning out and winning the job, and then Jonathan Alvarez ends up retiring from football, so it works out that way. But I think if everybody at Alabama feels good about Lester Cotton, it ain't going to change their dynamic that much on the offensive line. However, continuity of those 5 guys is paramount. Every great offensive line in football has stayed injury-free. Those 5 guys, that 5-man unit is the same one from start to finish, and the reason that that's important is because they know each other, they know the calls, and those are clearly your best and most talented linemen at each one of those positions. You want that person to be in that role for that job. A left guard playing left guard, a right guard playing right guard. It doesn't matter that you could really interchange the 3 guys in the interior. It doesn't matter that you could swap your left and right tackles. It does matter that they know that they are playing those positions, that the guy beside them is always going to be the guy beside them, because we all take that into account when we're doing a job. One of the things that makes us all feel very comfortable at our place of business, at the place where we work, is knowing who our co-workers are day in and day out. Johnny does this job, Danny does that job. We have this going on at OUinsider.com. Everybody knows what Joey Helmer does. Everybody knows what Brandon Drum does. Everybody knows what I do. Everybody knows what Colin Kennedy does. Everybody knows what Trevor Rogers does. We all have our roles and we fulfill them. And one of the reasons that we're all good at our individual jobs is because we can count on everybody else to do their job. And we know in the way that they're going to do their job. Like myself and Brandon Drum are launching a podcast. One of the reasons that we're doing it is because we understand how each other work. We understand what our strengths and weaknesses are. Now, if you pair me with somebody else, I don't think it'd be any good. I really don't. And vice versa. The same thing goes for Alabama's offensive line. I think that these guys are used to Lester Cotton. So it's not like you're pulling somebody out of thin air or somebody who just doesn't have the reps on the offensive line. Clearly, the man was starting before he got benched in favor of Deonte Brown. But playing musical chairs with your offensive lineman is not really what you want to do if you're an offensive line coach. It's just not. You want to be able to grow guys up. You want to be able to have your 5 be your 5, and then as they graduate or go to the league, as they're wont to do at Alabama, you serve up the next guy who's the most talented guy and has won a job. If you have somebody who's beaten out somebody else in the middle of the season for a job, that's bad. That's not the way that you draw it up. The guys that you think are going to be good in preseason are the guys that you expect to be good in November. Has it really worked out that way very often? No. But that's not necessarily because coaches are bad. It's because players get hurt. Players get lax. Players get lazy. Sometimes players just lose a step in the middle of the season because the grind and wear and tear of games and practices is such. So there's a myriad of reasons for why Deonte Brown could have usurped Lester Cotton as the starting left guard for Alabama. Now, if I am coaching the defensive line for Oklahoma, I go and try to hit that hole. I try to hit the center left guard position as much as possible with blitzes and pile driving and stunts to try to wedge open that narrow little bit of, let's not call it a weakness, let's call it an inconsistency, because that's what you're dealing with when you're talking about not just Alabama, but any of the 4 teams that are at this level. They're all here because they're very, very good football teams. So there's not really a weakness. There's merely an inconsistency. Unless, of course, you're Oklahoma and you're talking about the defense, but the inconsistency and the weakness is being turned on its head because Oklahoma is just sending more bodies at quarterbacks and trying to create turnovers and get picks, and that's another story for another day. Speaking of turning it on its head and what you're having to do to basically win, we should talk about Casey Thompson going into the transfer portal, if for no other reason than Casey Thompson was a quarterback at Texas. And him being a quarterback at Texas felt kind of wrong because his dad is Charles Thompson. And we all know that Charles Thompson has his own legacy at Oklahoma, and Casey Thompson grew up at Oklahoma. Is he a contender to transfer to Oklahoma? Maybe. But he's also going to get looks from other places because Casey Thompson's just that good. You might also keep your eye on Cameron Rising because I don't know that it's going to work out for that dude, and I just don't think that he fits the system for which Tom Herman wants to run. I think that you might see Cameron Rising end up at Arizona State to go along with Roshan. Roshan is out here now, right? He signed early, and he's going to be playing some quarterback, so they're going to lose some dudes in the same way that we're talking about Oklahoma could lose Austin Kendall. And we're also talking about Jalen Hurts perhaps taking a look at Oklahoma after the season because he could be a grad transfer. Now, would Austin Kendall still be there if Jalen Hurts got there? If, again, Jalen Hurts is not in the transfer portal. It's interesting to think about because people forget Austin Kendall was rated above Jalen Hurts in the 2016 recruiting class. Now, I know a lot has changed since then, but it's also a dude that averaged 300 yards passing per game in high school. Austin Kendall has every bit the potential to be a Heisman Trophy winner in 2019, but that QB room is loaded no matter Jalen Hurts gets to Oklahoma or not. That is something else to keep your eye on as all the transfers start to make their ways. I mean, we're talking about Justin Fields. We're talking about Casey Thompson. We're talking about perhaps Jalen Hurts. We're talking about Jaron Williams down in Miami. And that's kind of the thing that's really interesting about this redshirt rule and really interesting about the grad transfer rule is it's really made quarterbacks free agents for whatever it is they want to do. If they don't feel that they're getting the treatment that they want, or they don't think that the offense is doing what they want to do, or they think they're just in a bad situation, they have the most leverage of any college football player in America to go do what they want and play where they want. Kelly Bryant transferred from Clemson. Justin Fields is transferring from Georgia. Jaron Williams is transferring from Miami. Casey Thompson is transferring from Texas. There will be more. There won't be fewer. And this is only going to be a growing trend as we continue in college football. We see the redshirt rule shake out, and we see the graduate transfer rule continue to shake out because quarterbacks are such commodities, because they're in such high demand. I don't see it going another way. I wish it was this way for every college football player because I think the kids need more leverage in the NCAA, especially since they're not getting paid. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out because we'll know for sure what's going on by March, if not early January, with quarterbacks, with Oklahoma, with Alabama, with Georgia, and all of the other name brand college football programs. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.